Hello, Roz and everybody else. Let me just see. My preview screen is so tiny. I need to look on my laptop to see how it looks to you guys. All right, cluttered but acceptable right there. Let's go here. Get rid of that side. Maximize that, and I think the case will still be exactly cluttered but acceptable. All right. So the little table on the right's kind of small, but we don't need that just yet. So I'll make it larger when we get to the appropriate point, maybe. Last week and this week, what we've been working on is, I'll just make it go away for now. And hi, Punch. Hi, Roz. I know I don't really need to say hi to you, Punch, but it's good stream etiquette to say hi. So anyway, please put in your own, music, chill out as we dive into a bit more Latin last week and this. Exactly. I make you do it all the time, so I should return the favor. I always look over there just because that's where Punch is, so just for people who are watching and like, why does she keep turning away from the camera? That's why. All right, last week and this week, we are going to be doing cases. And so cases, that's the technical term for the various roles that a noun plays in a sentence. That's I think, a fine way of describing it. So last week we talked about nominative, genitive, and accusative. Let me just type those in. Nominative, genitive, and accusative. Oh, actually, we have them right there on the screen in the third column. Good. So the nominative is the subject. It's the most nouny noun of the sentence. The genitive is 90% of the time translated with the word of. And the way that we're approaching it right now, it shows ownership. The T of interceptor. I'm gonna have some tea. It might still be too hot, but it's been a couple minutes. It might be cool enough to drink right now. And the accusative is the direct object. That's actually a perfect time for that clip, Roz. So as you remember, when I was playing Assassin's Creed, I saw a statue, there was something in the genitive. I was pretty confused, like, why not in the vocative or the nominative? But it's put in the genitive because the statue is of someone. I can't remember in this particular case. I think I was looking at Serapis. So his name was in the genitive because it is his statue, right? Ownership. All right, and then the accusative, as I mentioned, is the direct object. Each of these words look a little bit differently for each case. And so here in the chart, we have highlighted in the middle the singular. So if the noun has an A in the nominative singular, it has an AE in the genitive singular, and an AM in the accusative singular. And then it has an AE in the nominative plural, arum, ARUM in the genitive plural, and as, AS in the accusative plural. So again, let's just look at a couple sentences just to remind us of what's going on. So here we'll just use these. Starting with number 7, Diana es dea silvarum. Diana is the goddess of the woods. That ARUM, that's genitive plural ending, of woods. And we have the vocab at the bottom, so you can double check what's going on. Oh, that. I'm blocking some of the third column of words. Let me fix that real quick. Did that work? Waiting to see how it looks on your end. I think I have moved it sufficiently. All right, there we go. Not blocking anything too important on the left, so there we go. Again, if you want to really be reading Latin, please be studying these vocab words during the week. There's not too many. There's only about 6, 12, 17. It looks like there's about 25 words or so there. A lot of them are very close to English words. So take the time to get to know them. All right. Number 8, Diana silwamamat. Diana loves the wood. So silwam, the accusative singular of silwa. So it is the direct object of the verb. In English, that means we move it after the verb most of the time. All right. Number 9, Diana sagitas portat. Diana carries arrows. Arrows, plural. AS, accusative plural. Now I'm actually going to put back that image here. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of well, what I'll do is I'll move it over here underneath me. Whoop. There we go. That legible? We'll see. We'll see in a moment if that's legible for you. Ah, there we go. You can read that now. So there's a handy cheat sheet of the endings for the cases for the nouns that end with an A in the singular. So all you have to do is look at the word and figure out what plugs in where. It's very mathematical at this point, which is lovely. It's a wonderful thing. So we've done the nominative, genitive, and accusative. Today we're going to learn the dative and the ablative. You will notice that this chart that I copied from Wikipedia also has the vocative and the locative. We don't need to worry about those. So just don't worry about them right now. The locative tells you what the location of something is. If you're in the city, for example, you would not use the locative case, but technically you could. It's very rare that the locative has to get used. It's only used in 3 regular nouns, domus, hummus, and rurus, rus. So the word for home, domus, the word for ground, hummus, and the word for the countryside, rus. And then the proper names of cities, towns, and small islands. That's the only time the locative case is used, so you don't need to worry about that. We can worry about that at a later occasion. If you hit it. If you find it, then you can worry about it. The vocative, you don't need to worry about, but that's because 90% of the time it looks just like the nominative and it's used as a direct address. So when you're calling for someone, oh, Punch, will you get me some tea? Punch in that sentence would be vocative. But it looked the same as the subject, and in context, it's really easy to translate because you're directly addressing someone. It contextually, it never causes problems, really. No, I'm not actually requiring more tea. I was just trying to come up with a vocative example, but thank you. I still have most of my tea. It's still a teeny bit hot, so I can't just like sip it hardcore fast. Faye. All right. Are you ready for the dative, everybody? Hey, Mr. Bushido. Good timing. I was just about to start new material. I was just reviewing what the nominative, genitive, and accusative do. You're not ready for a date. That's fair. I only take punch out for dates. But the dative case is good for anybody. Okay, so nominative is subject, genitive is of, accusative is the direct object, vocative and locative we're not worrying about. So dative. Yes, it sounds like dating. Linguistically, they're related. I think probably just because when you're dating someone, you give them gifts. And the dative case is used for indirect objects. I'm still trying to figure out which is which in a mouse, of a mouse, to a mouse, a mouse, o mouse. So the first one is a nominative, the second is genitive, the third is dative, the fourth is accusative, and the fifth is vocative. You do not have ablative in there. You would need a with a mouse. All right. Sorry. So the textbook here is giving you more context. So in English, we have a lot of prepositions, which are listed there: from, with, by, to, for, in, at. Right? English uses those, and that's how we get around having cases. Instead of changing the way a word looks, we use a preposition and just the noun as usual. Latin changes the way a noun looks and gets rid of some of the prepositions. It still uses prepositions, which we love. Prepositions clarify things, and that's actually why in later Latin there are more prepositions. And actually that's the way that language developed overall. As cases die off, prepositions are born. It's like the circle of life for languages. So I believe in Indo-European, which is where Latin and Greek and other old European languages are from, or also the Indian languages like Sanskrit, they had something like 13 cases, whereas, Latin's down to 5 important cases. So that's why Latin has many more prepositions. But Latin still has a lot of cases, and one of them is the dative. So the dative, as I said, is the indirect object, and when the nominative singular ends in A, the dative singular ends in AE, and the dative plural IS. You can also see that in the chart underneath the camera. What is an indirect object? What is an indirect object? It's a noun that has an interest in the verb, but isn't directly acted upon. I made tea for punch. All right, so as it says here, in 43. The dative case is used to express the prepositions to and for, but only to and for in a kind of abstract way. And what I mean is, if it's motion, it's not a dative. She went to town, he ran towards the house, Columbus sailed for or towards America. That's a different logic than I'm doing this for punch, right? It also doesn't usually express purpose. So if I did this for world domination, for the purpose of world domination, it would use a different expression, right? So that's where dative starts getting a little bit tricky. Because when you're doing English to Latin, you can see the word to, especially the word to, and try to put things into dative that shouldn't be in dative. It's not motion towards, it's not purpose. In an active, yeah, I'm quibbling with the word choice in this book, as happens when you're a Latin teacher all the time. It's also not an infinitive. So an infinitive in English is to blank. So blank being a verb. So I love to read Latin. I love to read. That's a verbal infinitive. That's not an indirect object. So be very careful if you're doing English to Latin. What kind of to and for is this? Is this a to and for of a person who's kind of benefiting from the sentence? I give a gift to Vrasov. I give bits to Max. The Latin stream is fun for Mr. Bushido. I'm putting words in your mouth, but it's just for the sake of Latin examples here. Those are all dative. But I'm going to church this morning. That's not an indirect object. It's a place I'm going to. Very different. All right. So we can do some of the English practice here in A. What dative relations do you discover in the following? Let me just see if anybody's anything. 2, 4, 1. I like Mr. Bushido's double dative there. And I just made myself laugh because double dative is actually a type of construction in Latin grammar. Which it's very rare, and it actually helps you express purpose. So sometimes purpose is kind of dative-y, and sometimes purpose is not dative-y. It gets a little bit vague. We're not going to worry too much about all the exceptions right now. We'll see them as we get further in. Right now, we just want to know the basic indirect object, dative, translated with to or for. All right. Yeah. You guys are silly students, but those are the best kind of students, frankly. I love my silly students. All right. So, the teacher gave a prize to John because he replied so promptly to all her questions. A good example for the rest of us. All right. So, just kind of scanning for to and fors to John. Definitely a dative. The teacher gave a prize to John. Indirect object. Because he replied promptly to all her questions, Uh, not really. Right? He's replying to the questions. That's not really an indirect object. That's not really dative-y. But a good example for the rest of us, it is a good example for us that is dative. You're right. Technically, that is a fragment at the end of the sentence, and it is missing the verb to be. But it is something that you would hear in English frequently. Okay. It is a pleasure to us to hear him recite. All right, so we got to us and to hear. Which one's the dative, guys? Which one's the dative? Which one's the not? It's a wonderful song that I just sang for all of you. I'm giving you time to answer while I take a drink of tea. All right, any ideas? It is a pleasure to us to hear him recite. I'm tangled in the grammar. To us being the indirect object. Yep. No, that is totally a good way of doing it. Let me read Roswav's whole comment. I'm tangled in the grammar. Hearing him recite is a pleasure to us. So he just rephrased it in a way that made the grammar more clear. So he was able to correctly identify to us as the indirect object. Exactly. Because to hear is a verbal thing. In here, it is an infinitive, but what Roswell said is the exact same meaning. So if that helps you identify the English grammar, then do it. Right? To Latin, you'd write it the same. It means the same thing. So very good job. Right? Latin is easy for him, but it's very hard for me. Those cases, the for is the indirect object. The perspective thing. Latin is easy to me. Latin is easy for me. Hey, I think we've got an okay sense. All right. And then the expression of it in Latin in 44. Nauta fugam nuntiat. Nuntiat governs the direct object fugam. It's got that M. And if we want to say to whom sailor announces, the farmers, then you put in farmers in the dative plural. And so you see the word for farmer is agricola, the first word in the third image on the bottom there. So the dative plural of agricola, if you go to the chart under the webcam, you'll see it's an IS, so agricolis. Let's see if they actually write the sentence. Yep. Nauta agricolis gam nuntiat. The sailor announces the flight of the farmers. Okay. Not so bad. Oh. Sorry, I guess my noise gate's too high, and I'm speaking too softly. I apologize. Okay. I'm going to read through a couple of the sentences, but then we're going to go to ablative because I don't want to be going too long today because I don't trust the power. So, quis nautis pecuniam dat? Who gives money to the sailors? And again, you just know that is is dative plural. AM is accusative singular. So you just got to plug it in. Filiae agricolae nautis pecuniam dant. The daughters of the farmer give money to the sailors. Why did I say daughters of the farmers and not farmers of the daughter? Simply because of word order. It also makes a little bit more sense. Quis fortunam pugnae nuntiat? Who announces the fortune, the outcome of the fight? Galba agricolis fortunam pugnae nuntiat. Galba announces the outcome of the fight to the farmers. I don't know who's fighting right now. Qui domina fabulam narat? To whom? You have to look at the little side note. So the CUI is the dative singular. To whom does the lady tell the story? Filiae agricolae domina fabulam narat. Oh, tricky. The lady tells the story to the daughter of the farmer. Whoa, whoa, whoa. How did I know which one was the indirect object? Which one was the genitive? Why didn't I take it as nominative plural? Well, the verb is singular, and domina is in the nominative. So that answers that. So that leaves us with the genitive or dative. And again, genitive tends to follow the noun that it's going with. Quis Dianae coronam dat? Who gives the crown to Diana? Puella Dianae coronam dat quia Dianam amat. The girl gives the crown to Diana because she loves Diana. So quia means because, so it's connecting these two separate sentences. You carry over the same subject unless there's a new one. So puella for both verbs. Very nice construction. Dea lunae sagittas portat et feras silvarum necat. The goddess carries... Oh, I skipped ahead too fast. Luna is genitive going with Dea. Why do I know that and it's not the dative? Because the verb is portat, carries, and generally, I mean, you can carry something to someone for sure, but she's not going to carry arrows to the moon. No, the goddess of the moon carries arrows. If she were carrying arrows to the moon, then it would be motion towards, it'd be a different thing. And she kills the wild animals of the woods. Cuius victoriam galba nuntiat. Cuius is the genitive. So Galba announces whose victory? Nautae victoriam Galba nuntiat. Galba announces the victory of the sailor. I went with the genitive there because cuius in the question part of it was a genitive. We're talking about whose victory it is.